Mumia is incarcerated. We will have a press conference and a rally there to once again make the call for Mumia to get the medical care that he needs, and for all prisoners, especially our elders, to get the medical care
and
that
Noelle
they need.
Hanrahan, 10 seconds.
It's relief from the inside out. This was built by prisoners. It was built by prisoners' families, the Abolitionist Law Center, Salim Holbrook, Brett Grody, the lead attorney. We are going to win and create the world that we deserve.
Noelle Hanrahan is one of Mumia Abu-Jamal's attorneys and founder and producer of Prison Radio. Larry Hamm is chair of the People's Organization for Progress on the March for Mumia, speaking to us from Frackville, Pennsylvania, where he is imprisoned. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
Hi, this is Al McFarland, host of The Conversation with Al McFarland. You're listening to 90.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis. I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. A lot of interesting things happening in the news today. A lot of it, for me, has to do with the president's statements about the Somali community here in Minnesota and in the country. We want to talk about that, and if you are part of Minneapolis' Somali community or part of the progressive community in Twin Cities, if you've got a comment, pro or con, regarding the president's statements, we'd love to have you involved in today's conversation. You can do that by going to one of the social media platforms that we're streaming live to now, and just ask to be invited onto the program. We'll send you a link and let you be part of the conversation. We're streaming live to YouTube. Go to YouTube.com/Insight News MN, and you'll be at our Insight YouTube page. But we're also streaming to Black Press USA on YouTube. We're streaming on Twitter. We're streaming on Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you are on any of those platforms, you can join the conversation, make a comment, make a remark, and or let us send a link to you, and we will invite you into the studio to share your concerns and your point of view. I want to start off by sort of sharing some of the articles that are in this week's edition of Insight News. And I'm going to pull that up in a second. If you don't have Insight, you can pick it up on newsstands around Twin Cities. You can also go online at insightnews.com and see what we're doing. I'm going to pull up the story, our front page of this paper. In fact, Jared, can you bring that up and we can share and make it large enough for me to read, but people can follow along with it as well. And here we go. So the headline on our cover story for this week is Officials Push Back. And let me... again, make my screen larger so that I can read it. And there we go. I've got it. So this is in yesterday's Insight News. Headline, Officials Push Back After Trump's Anti-Somali Remarks. In the wake of bombastic comments from President Donald Trump, in which he called Somali immigrants in Minnesota garbage, quote unquote, and said he didn't want them in the country and pledged to end protections for some under the Temporary Protection Status, TPS. Somali American elected officials, community leaders in Minnesota, and others are responding forcefully. Their reactions reflect courage, fear for community safety, and a reaffirmation of the Somali Minnesotans' longstanding place in the state. Now I have to make my screen even a little bit bigger so I can see it better. I don't know if you can do that for me, Jared. Maybe I can grow my screen. I'm not able to make, there we go. That's bigger. Great. Okay. And scroll over to the left a little bit for the first column. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to Jared, who's engineering the program. Jared, thank you. So I continue. Again, this article is in yesterday's edition of Inside News. We want to talk about what our country is experiencing now and what Minnesota and Twin Cities, Somali and immigrant community and Black community all are experiencing through the voice, the posture of President Donald Trump. The article continues that U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar from the 5th District called Trump's remarks completely disgusting. That reported in the Guardian newspaper and in Reuters. In a December 7th interview on CBS's Face the Nation, Omar said, "These are Americans that he's calling garbage." Omar called the disparaging comments dehumanizing rhetoric that could incite dangerous actions by people who listen to the president. Though acknowledging serious fraud cases involving some individuals of Somali origin, Omar rejected attempts to use those cases to smear the whole community. She emphasized that no terrorism charges have been filed and called the blanket accusation against Somali Minnesotans baseless. Maybe, Jared, while we are doing this, we can put context by pulling up some of the news reports. Maybe there's an audio or video we can grab where President Trump is making that infamous statement accusing the Somalis in Minnesota of defrauding the U.S. government and of Minnesota of, he said, billions of dollars, all untrue. And equally untrue is this laying of the actions of a few at the feet of the many, demonizing, devaluing the entire culture, the entire community. So Omar said she backed the investigations into the COVID relief fraud. So I was going to say that. So if you remember, Feeding Our Future, I think is the name of the organization that was charged with theft, and it did go into the hundreds of millions, couple $100 million of reimbursements that some individuals took and enriched themselves. And there were allegations that a lot of the funding not only went into personal funds, but also was spirited overseas to accounts in Somalia and elsewhere. And the general accusation is that some of it was used to fund terrorism. So it says Omar backed investigations into the COVID relief fraud, including the Feeding Our Future case, but she stressed that claims of money going to al-Shabaab have not resulted in terrorism charges, saying that if there were evidence, that would be a failure of federal investigators not to bring it. Omar said that Trump is using racism to distract from the failures of his administration, especially his economic promises that have not materialized. On TPS, that's temporary protection status, Omar warned against what's unlawful targeting of a Somali community. She noted that ending TPS for Somalis could violate the program's required legal process, which doesn't allow a president to single out a state or an ethnic group. U.S. Representative Betty McCollum and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, St. Paul Mayor-elect Cowley Herr, and members of the legislature and community activists also spoke out against Trump's actions and supported the Somali community during a rally last Monday at the state capitol. Mayor-elect of St. Paul, Cowley Herr, said painting an entire community with a broad brush just because of the actions of a few has created an untrue narrative. State Representative Mohammed Noor said Somalis are a fabric of the state of Minnesota, and that they're in every profession. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. They are our family. In interviews with Eyewitness news on KSTP, Channel 5, Noor called Trump's remarks dangerous, warning that they foster fear and risk scapegoating an entire community for the crimes of a few. And so Noor's remarks came at this gathering of lawmakers and community leaders and activists who were condemning Trump's pledge to end temporary protections for the Somali immigrants. He said a move that would destabilize the lives of many who have long been a part of Minnesota's social fabric. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. Today's conversation is about the president's remarks on the Somali community in Minnesota and in the country. And if you're listening anywhere here on KFAI or across any of our social media platforms, I'd love to invite you into the conversation and just drop a, if you're on the radio, go to YouTube Insight News MN and click on the channel and make a comment, but also request a link to join the show. We'd love to have you share your thoughts and your voices on this article, on this issue, and just how we're doing here in Minnesota. So I'll continue the story. This is a story, the cover story for Insight News this week. It's yesterday's date. Following Trump's statements and the announcement of a planned immigration crackdown targeting undocumented Somali immigrants in Minnesota, community gatherings have reflected collective anxiety. At a widely attended event in South Minneapolis, hundreds of Somali American leaders and community members and local allies assembled to condemn what they termed Islamophobic, xenophobic rhetoric. Many expressed concern that the targeting goes beyond policy disagreements, that it represents a broad attack on Somali American identity and belonging. The tensions, as we mentioned earlier, stem partly from a large-scale fraud investigation tied to welfare and state social service programs, included the COVID-era nutrition program administered by the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. Many of the people charged in that scandal are Somali. In recent weeks, the combination of fraud allegations and Trump's portrayal of the community as criminally complicit and a plan, let me change page to page 4 for the jump of the story. Hang on. There we go. Thank you, Jarrett, for turning the page. And there we go. So the actions targeting undocumented immigrants has triggered deep fear and unrest among Somalis, from business losses to concerns about racial profiling, deportations, and community safety. Many in the Somali community say they feel under siege, worrying about ICE raids, arrests, racial profiling, regardless of their immigration status. And critics charge that Trump's move violates the legal protections and statutes governing TPS, which is temporary protection status, which do not allow a president to single out a state and an ethnic group or an ethnic group. Minnesota Somali American leaders reject the narrative advanced by Trump that Somali immigrants are a drain, a criminal network, or outsiders to American life. Instead, they reassert that Somali Minnesotans are integral to the state, working families, running businesses, serving as elected officials, and contributing to every facet of Minnesota life. Senator Omar Fattah, the Minneapolis Democrat and the first Somali American in the Minnesota Senate, and now a high-profile statewide and national figure, pushed back as well. In an international piece on Somali reaction to Trump from Mogadishu to Minneapolis, Fattah is quoted condemning the president's language. Fattah called the comments disgraceful, described them as political theater aimed at riling up his base, Trump's base, rather than addressing policy issues. And Fatah's framing is that Trump is using Somalis as a political prop, a foil for culture war messaging, rather than approaching immigration or fraud issues seriously. That article is one that's on the cover of Inside News. We've got another one that I'll share as well. Go back to the cover if you would, Jared, and we'll look at the second article, which is one that I think comes from our National Association of the Black Press USA. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. And thank you for listening here on KFAI. And thank you for joining the program on any of the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, YouTube, or Facebook. And we really want you to be involved in the conversation. You can weigh in with the comment, pro, con, indifferent, by leaving a comment on any of the social media platforms that we're streaming to live. And if you want to be on the program, want to bring your voice and your face to this conversation, we welcome that as well. Just leave a comment saying that I'd like to say something or tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll send you a link and bring you into the program as well. The second article here is one also on the cover of Inside News, this week's edition, published yesterday. And it's an article that is by Stacey Brown, who is the senior national correspondent for the Black Press of America, Black Press USA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which Inside News is a member. And so Stacey Brown writes that in the case of Rodney Taylor, a disabled Black immigrant detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, this case is forcing Congress to confront new evidence of medical neglect, unchecked raids, and a hiring system that has shifted under President Donald Trump's order to build the largest deportation force in modern history. Taylor's family was scheduled to speak outside the Capitol on December 4th, following a House Judiciary Subcommittee hearing on immigration integrity, security, and enforcement. Taylor, who lost both legs years before his detention, has been held in Georgia since January. CNN reported earlier this year that Taylor said, going back to Liberia is like going back to a foreign country, as ICE pressed forward with deportation efforts despite a full pardon he received in 2010 for a 1997 burglary conviction. His wife, Mildred Pierre, said Taylor's health has declined sharply since entering custody. The world needs to know what is happening to people like Rodney, including solitary confinement, no access to water, impairment, and even falling as a result of limited medical attention for his prosthetics that require charging daily, said Pierre during remarks prepared for Congress. The conditions described by Taylor's family reveal many of the failures that permeate ICE facilities. A study published by the University of Pennsylvania's Leonard Davis Institute found that more than half of the ICE facilities examined lacked year-round physician coverage. The analysis reported that 5 facilities had no behavioral health staff for at least 1 year, and that more than 10% of physicians working inside detention carried state sanctions for violations, including falsified medical documentation or practicing under the influence. How about that? This article I'm reading is an article, the second cover story in this week's edition of Inside News. If you scroll down a little bit, Jared, the title of the article, no, the other way. The title of the article is Chaos, Neglect, and Abuse Inside Trump's ICE Machine. So it's a companion story to the concern being raised by our Somali community here and around the nation. And this concern is not just Somalis. This story, Rodney Taylor, is about the Liberian community, also on pins and needles about TPS. And that is true of other Black and brown communities in this country, all of which find themselves subject to potential rounding up and removal by ICE. The question becomes, for African Americans or foundational Black Americans, how does an ICE agent tell the difference between you and a Liberian, a Somali, or other African origin person? And sadly, what we know is that when in history, for example, when white rioters invaded and destroyed Black communities, like in Wilmington, like in Rosewood, like in Tulsa, they didn't stop and ask which of you is a good one, which of you is a bad one. They destroyed our communities, our property, our futures en masse and relentlessly. And so that's something that has to be on our mind right now as we witness the tourniquet being tightened in our community by the reckless rhetoric of President Donald Trump. Now, if you've got a feeling about this, good, bad, indifferent, I'd love to have you weigh in on the conversation as well. And you can do it by simply going to one of the social media platforms that we're streaming on. We're streaming live on Twitter, on LinkedIn, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you connect with us on any of those platforms, leave your comment. Let us know what you think, what you feel. We'll share those. We'll share them out to our audiences. And we'd like to have you come on the show up, and we'll invite you into the program if you want to be part of this conversation as well. So I'm going to continue with this article. The article is called Chaos, Neglect, and Abuse Inside Trump's ICE Machine. It's in this week's edition, yesterday's edition of Inside News, an article by Stacey M. Brown, the U.S. Black Press USA senior editor. So, so I left off with practicing under the influence. So scroll over just a little bit for me. There we go. Government oversight records cited in the report found that a detention center in Buffalo housing more than 700 people had no physician or dentist on site and might not have one until 2026. None presently and none scheduled for still a month away. Some data chronicled the death of a detainee in Colorado who suffered a pulmonary embolism after reporting weeks of leg swelling. Let's see, scroll it down a little bit, just a second. Other way. Leg swelling and pain, but was assessed 3 times only by licensed practical nurses, despite the facility's claim that a physician was present. Pressure inside the system escalated as Trump ordered ICE to dramatically increase arrests and deportations. Government records reviewed by Politico showed that 20 detainees have died in ICE custody since Trump took office, a number nearly matching the total deaths regarded in the entire Biden administration. Politico reported that the population inside ICE detention has reached more than 60,000 people, with 10 facilities and frequent transfers contributing to lost medical records and interrupted treatment. Attorneys representing detainees described a pattern of worsening medical neglect. Open quote, I have a client right now who has untreated diabetes. They just stopped giving her medicine, close quote, said Rebecca Wolf, a staff attorney with the American Immigration Council during an interview with Politico. They turn to the next page on the story. On page 4, this is a story on ICE. And there we go, and make it a little larger for me again. Thank you. At the same time, internal oversight weakened. Reportedly, the Department of Homeland Security attempted to eliminate its civil rights and detention ombudsman offices earlier this year before lawsuits forced the offices to reopen. Hundreds of oversight staff members were laid off afterward during a government-wide reduction in force, and inspectors general who had monitored detention conditions were dismissed. The administration's hiring campaign has transformed ICE's workforce. Government executive the publication Government Executive reported that ICE was granted $8 billion to hire 10,000 new officers and agents. Reports suggest that Tyshawn Thomas, the agency's chief human capital officer, left ICE to return to another federal position during what sources called as a disordered hiring system. Further, ICE lowered age requirements, offering $50,000 signing bonuses, and rushed recruits in the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center before completing fingerprinting, drug testing, or background checks. What about that? Boy. Training standards also shifted. Recruits are now relying, scroll over a little bit, Jared, relying on translation apps, said the Department of Homeland Security during communications with USA Today, as the agency acknowledged ending a 5-week basic Spanish requirement. The outlet reported that training for recruits without prior law enforcement experience was cut from 16 weeks to 8 weeks. A separate investigation detailed deeper problems inside the training center in Georgia. We have people failing open book tests, and we have folks that can barely read or write English, said one Department of Homeland Security official during an interview with the Daily Mail. The outlet reported that one recruit asked to leave class to attend a court hearing on a gun charge. Several recruits displayed gang-related tattoos, and others were involved in fights, harassment, and misconduct on the campus. They only care about how many unique individuals enter on duty. Enter on duty is in quotes. What happens after that is irrelevant to them, said another Department of Homeland Security official. Raids across the country highlight these shifts. People's World, the publication, reported that ICE agents entered churches in Chicago after the administration reversed longstanding policies restricting enforcement in religious spaces. It is the aim of the administration to terrorize people, said Reverend Primo Racimo of St. Margaret of Scotland Episcopal Church in New York. New York published security camera footage showing ICE agents forcing their way into a basement apartment in Queens while searching for someone who did not live there. The outlet said an agent pointed a gun and flashlight at a mother holding her infant as she pleaded for them to stop. "Then I'm coming to get you by your baby," said one ICE agent during the incident. To scroll down again, Jared, scroll it down a little bit. There we go. Human Rights Watch documented similar raids in Los Angeles in which agents wearing masks and carrying military-style weapons took people into custody based on race, ethnicity, language, or occupation. They tear apart families, cause people to live in fear, and showcase the cruelty of the Trump administration's immigration policies, said John Reffling, Associate United States Program Director at Human Rights Watch, during an interview with the organization. For Pierre, the testimony is both a warning and a plea. The world needs to know what is happening to people like Rodney, including solitary confinement, no access to water, impairment, and falling as a result of limited medical attention for his prosthetics, said Pierre, again, who's testifying on behalf of her husband. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're talking today about Somalis in Minnesota, and the president's bombastic, that's my language, description, denigration of Somali residents, Somali citizens, and the Black community, and his threat to ramp up deportation, his saying that he didn't want Somalis in the country. So take this down right now. That's I'm through with reading this, Jared, and we'll come to another piece. But if you're listening and want to be part of this conversation, we want you to be part of it. Join the conversation by sending a note or a text or a comment to us. And we appreciate, we'll share your comments out. Anthony Scott said he'd like to participate. Anthony, Jared, if you can find a way to send a link to Anthony Scott, we'd like to get him that. In fact, you can put the link in the chat here. And Anthony will get you on. We'd love to have your point of view. Jared, are you able to get a link to Anthony or drop the link actually in the comment? And other people that see the link could also jump in the conversation, and we'll just try to expand it. Hold on. And Jared is saying yes. So Anthony, thank you for listening. And as soon as you get the link, come in, we'll bring you into the conversation. So, and thank you for the note to responding to you, Anthony. Thanks for watching, and we want you to participate. Anybody else, if you're listening on any of the platforms, Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitter or LinkedIn, we'd love to have you in the conversation. And do this, if you're listening, share the conversation to your network, to your friends, let them know we're here. Invite them to join the conversation as well. While we're waiting to get Anthony in, there's another piece that I wanted to share, and you can pull this back up if you would, Jared. Jared's our producer that makes everything happen for us here. And that's the piece on page 3. And that's a story about the CARE organization making comments and responding to President Trump's comments. Do you want to pull that up? Oh, Anthony is here. Anthony, let's get you on screen. Anthony, how you doing? Oh, he's not here yet. We just sent the link to you. That's what okay. So Anthony, we just sent the link to you, and click on and join the conversation. In the meantime, Jared, pull up the issue again for insight. And on page 3, there's an article, another reaction article, a couple of articles that I want to share. And so, this is important. There's a lot going on in this story. This is a beginning. On its face, I'm horrified by the posturing of President Trump. I think what he's saying is inappropriate and crazy and wrong-headed. I think he's stoking the fire of racist, white supremacists in our country, and seeking, as always, a new boogeyman to rally his troops to make them feel that they are in danger of being replaced, the replacement theory. And so what happens is that they gin up this disinformed and misled mass of ordinary people who see themselves as, loyal Americans and loyal to the premise and the promise, and who are waiting for America's promise to unfold in their lives, and who are being frightened into think that immigrants, right now, the immigrants du jour, or the Somali immigrants, are taking resources and assets that they could have to improve their quality of life, and they're upset about it. But they've applied that to the Liberians, to the Nigerians, to the Latinos, to the Asian, the Vietnamese, the Hmong populations, all of the immigrant populations, particularly Venezuelans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, not immigrants, but you get the drift, people that are not European. And they are kind of stoking the sense of entitlement that some white people feel they have to enjoy the benefits of this country, and they feel those entitlements are being encroached on by the presence of people from other parts of the world, particularly people of color. So we've got another article, again, hoping that we'll get Anthony Scott on the call momentarily. Anthony, hope you'll join. But there's another article here about the CARE Minnesota condemns politically motivated ICE targeting of Somali Minnesotans. And let me make that large on my screen here. And the article says the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, Minnesota, C-A-I-R, Minnesota, denounced what it described as a sharp and politically driven surge in ICE actions aimed at Somali Minnesotans, calling the developments alarming and damaging to a community's trust. In recent days, Somali families across the state have reported surprise visits from immigration agents intimidation at private homes, and increased surveillance in neighborhoods with large Somali populations. CARE Minnesota said it is actively documenting cases while coordinating rapid response legal aid and community support. This is not standard immigration enforcement. This is political targeting, said Jelani Hussein, CARE Minnesota's executive director. He said the actions appear to stem from directives tied to President Donald Trump and his allies, and he accused federal officials of using secret police-style operations against law-abiding Somali residents, including U.S. citizens. Hussein called the tactics an abuse of power and urged leaders across political lines to publicly reject what he described as Islamophobic scapegoating. CARE Minnesota said fear-based enforcement erodes public safety by undermining trust between community members and government agencies. It warned that broad punitive actions against entire communities only deepen fear, further marginalize immigrant families, and contradict Minnesota values. Scroll over a little bit. In Minnesota, we believe in safety, fairness, and treating our neighbors with dignity, Hussein said. Targeting whole communities for the actions of individuals is dangerous, unjust, and out of step with who we are. CARE Minnesota, the state's leading Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, continues its work to protect civil rights, strengthening understanding of Islam, and to promote justice and empower Muslim Americans or American Muslims. And there's also another story on this page. Did we get Brother Scott in yet? Let me see if we. So we're hopefully we sent Anthony Scott a link that will allow him to join the program. So Anthony, if you're still listening, we did send you a link. Just click on it, and I see that Damian Destoni 9930 has joined and saying hi. Damian, thank you for joining the program. If you've got a comment to make about this program, just drop us a note. Let us know. And if you like to be part of the program, we'd be glad to bring you in for your thoughts and your ideas. I'm Al McFarland, with Al McFarland. We're talking about the Somali community here in Minnesota and around the country that's being threatened, as well as other immigrant communities, with action by ICE, immigration and customs enforcement, and their effort to round up people that they, we believe, are targeting. So here's another comment from the other side of this conversation, and we thank you, Jason Day. Let me share it. Jason Day seems to be justifying the ICE action. Jason is saying, steal $8 billion from American taxpayers, and you will face the consequences. So the problem with that, Jay, is where's the documentation? Where are the receipts? Just because somebody drops out that big number does not mean that is the case. And what would be interesting is you, Jason, and others, all of us, identifying the billions and billions and billions of waste in our military and waste in other elements of government. So, you know, it's selective to say that an $8 billion fraud occurred here, but the rest of the country is running smoothly. You know that's not true. We know it's not true. And if you have a real concern, Jason, it should be about fraud broadly in our country. You know, one of the stories that I wanted to read today, I think I can find it. So Damien kind of had the same line of thought. I think maybe he didn't, but his comment is separate. I think more compassionate. Does Trump even know why they are here? Did we not offer them refuge? So thank you for that. And I didn't want to mischaracterize. I'm reading that statement, Damien, as to say, you know, you're wondering how knowledgeable the president is about the Somali presence. Does he know why they're here? And you're asking, does he know that America offered the refuge to Somalis. It wasn't like they were at the gates coming over the Atlantic, over the wall. So thank you for that comment. If you've got a comment, we'd like to have your comment, and glad to have you join. Again, we did send a link to a couple of people. If you want to come on, just jump on. We'd like to have you talk. Damien, are you interested in being in the conversation? We'll send you the link too. Love to hear your thoughts. And Jason, listen, I extend the same thing to you. You and I are on different sides of this conversation, but we have to have the conversation. So I thank you for making your comments. I'm going to send you the link as well. And if you want to come in to the conversation, we welcome you, and we challenge you to prove what you're saying. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland, here live on KFAI. We appreciate all of our KFAI audience. And what's so powerful and important is that our station here is seated in the heart of the Somali community on the West Bank of Minneapolis. So this story is personal for a lot of people in this building and on the street right around our studio and in the neighborhood that we're in, as well as widely and broadly across Twin Cities. And I think that people are on, I've listened to radio shows and reports locally where people are setting up systems to monitor ICE movements. One show I listened to yesterday on the way home, a person reported that they were watching a black car, a big black, what do you call those cars? You know what I mean? The black sedans, unmarked sedans, and two people were sitting in it. It seemed like they were in surveillance, and they didn't belong in the neighborhood wherever they were watching or posted. So there are people set up trying to keep watch on ICE movements or political or law enforcement movements that seem to be targeting our communities. So send Damien the link, and he's got a couple of minutes, Jarrett, and maybe you can join us for a couple of minutes. We appreciate your voice. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're talking about the impact of President Trump's comments about the Somali community, about Somali Americans, saying that he doesn't want the Somalis here, and threatening to ramp up the ICE efforts to deport. Particularly interested in hearing from my Somali brothers and sisters. If you are in the community and want to make a comment, we'd love to have your comments. One thing that we'll do in the future is go deeper into this, because while on the one hand, we are anxious to protect the rights of every human being and every citizen, there are different voices in the Black community where some are questioning the relationship between what's called foundational Black Americans and the traditional legacy African American community and the newly arrived African Americans, including Somalis. That would also include, in some cases, people from the Caribbean or South America who are Black, but who are newly arrived in this country, this generation or one or two generations removed, like me, from Caribbean, Cuban roots on my father's side. So there's a discussion that we have to have about what it means, and when we're talking about who should be here and who should not be here, because it seems like part of the myopic voice is that some of us African Americans are questioning whether Somalis should be in this country. I stand against that line of thought. I think that we all should be here, and we should invite more of us to come from everywhere around the world so that we grow our numbers and grow community, and that we change this country by being ourselves in this country and being ourselves in the world. I believe that if we create the ability to do business with each other, bypassing the central systems that support European and white supremacy, we will begin to shift the entire global understanding and the global capacity, global capabilities, by bringing things to a level of both global and local fluidity. And I think that's one of the pathways forward for economics and for culture and for democracy and freedom, for humanity, human development in the future. Love to have your comments, love your thoughts. If you agree or disagree, join us in the conversation, because I'm sure a lot of people think very, very different from me. I'd love to have your comments. And you can do that by, Jared, put the link in or send the link over to Damien again in the chat, so that if he sees it, he can sign on to the program. There's one more article that I wanted to read, and that's the one from about Esther Agbaje. And Jared, I think it's on the same page or not. It may be inside a page. If you can scroll over. And I don't have control of the screen, but if you can scroll over, Jared, and let's see if I can do this. Yeah. And identify a story by Esther on state representative. And I'm not sure if it's on this page, it's on the next page, I believe. Scroll back, and let's look. There it is. There we go. So bring that story up. So let me share one more voice. That is state representative. She's my representative here in North Minneapolis, where I live and where I vote. Let's see, I want to widen my screen. And while we're doing that, if those other viewers can join the call with the links, please bring them in. The headline is Agbaje condemns anti-immigrant, I think, I can't read that, rhetoric, and she calls for community defense and rights education. So the picture of State Representative Esther Agbaje. The article reads, State Representative, make it larger, please. State Representative Esther Agbaje is lifting her voice alongside community leaders as Minnesota confronts a new wave of federal hostility towards immigrants, particularly Somali Minnesotans. And speaking as the daughter of a Nigerian immigrant or Nigerian immigrants, Agbaje says the rhetoric coming from the White House is causing grief, fear, anger across communities that have long contributed to the social, cultural, and economic fabric of the state. She described the president's remarks targeting Somali Americans with racist accusations of xenophobic language as both dangerous and dehumanizing. She emphasized that immigrants are not political pawns, but neighbors, families, and essential contributors to Minnesota life. She said, above all, they are human beings who deserve to be treated as human. Agbaje reminded Minnesotans that the state's strength lies in its cultural diversity and its longstanding commitment to care for one another. Immigrants, she said, are an essential fabric of our identity, who we are, and the values that bond us. Her message underscores unwavering commitment to defend immigrant communities when they're targeted and to ensure residents have the tools to protect themselves and their rights. Fear and division, she said, cannot be allowed to outweigh justice or community unity. And recently she appeared on News Nation to counter some of the false narratives about fraud prevention and to explain Minnesota's work to hold accountable those who do commit fraud. In fact, she said the administration continues to distort to justify sweeping attacks on immigrant communities. She's joined the Minneapolis House delegation in issuing a statement condemning the rhetoric and decision to bring ICE into local Minneapolis neighborhoods. The legislator says the administration's approach is harming Minnesotans by manufacturing crises and inciting fear rather than addressing affordability, stability, or safety for all residents. Agbaje says communities must respond not only with condemnation, but let's move it over. Jared, slide the text over, please. Yeah. But with preparation and solidarity, she highlighted the work of local advocates who are building rapid response networks to protect residents from targeted immigration raids and to ensure everyone understands their constitutional rights. Upcoming training, such as legal observer workshops, rapid response training led by the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, and nonviolent direct action sessions are equipping residents to support neighbors facing harassment or detention. Agbaje also pointed to a comprehensive immigration resource toolkit created by Senate DFL members, along with legal support provided by the Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota. Can you scroll over again, please, Jarrett? For individuals detained by ICE, she encouraged constituents to continue reaching out for information, assistance and resources as federal tension unfolds. She said, Minnesotans love our neighbors, and we will protect one another. Good piece by Representative Esther Agbaji. Again, a first generation, her parents are Nigerian. She represents the neighborhood that I'm sitting in right now in North Minneapolis in the state legislature. I'm Alan McFarland. This is The Conversation with Alan McFarland, and we're talking about the president's remarks and the consequence, the impact of his denigrating the Somali community, the Somali immigrant community, and those Somali Americans who were born here, and his statements. Jared, were you able to find any video of the president's comments? Because they are disgusting. Were you able to locate anything, Jared? And go to the private chat. You have some video, 7 minutes long, but no clips. Can we show a piece of a video, just the beginning of one? Do you have that queued up, or can you queue it up? And we can just listen to, a couple of paragraphs. And this is why this is important, just to hear what the president is doing. It's really unbelievable and disgusting. Simple as that, disgusting. And if you got a comment, we'd love to have you join the conversation. Add your voice to ours. We think it's an important topic, and we want you to share. So we're pulling up one of the pieces that the president commented on. I think we got it up. Why don't you bring it up and run that for about a minute or so. And the source of this piece is Al Jazeera English. So as you can see on the screen, it says Trump targets Somali Americans and claims they're destroying America.
In our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country.
President Donald Trump's comments have shocked many of the estimated 260,000 people of Somali descent living in the U.S. Bahaja Ali owns a cafe in Minneapolis, which is one of the largest Somali communities in America.
The fear among the Somali community is real. Like this mall, if you come to like around noon, nobody's here.
To travel to the US. Trump has stepped up his criticism of Somalis living in the US after what has been described as reports in a conservative news publication said taxpayers' money from defrauded government programs was being sent to Al-Shabaab, an armed group operating in Somalia, which the US designated a terrorist organization in 2008. An investigation is ongoing, but little evidence has emerged so far. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Now, hundreds of thousands of Somalis fled when their government collapsed and a civil war broke out in 1991. Those who sought refuge in the US were granted protected status. It's something set to expire in March of next year, but President Trump is threatening to revoke it. Data from the US Census Bureau shows that about 260,000 people of Somali descent are living in California, Washington, Ohio, and Minnesota.
So let's stop that there, Jared. This is a big story. It's a global story, and we here are at the center of it again. And we're pleased to bring this conversation, include, the question about fraud and the use of the finding of fraud by some individuals to create a broad brush. What I have heard and what I'm fearing is that when things like this happen, not only are the individuals who are adjudicated and properly addressed, fined, jailed for transgressions, but the entire community suffers. And the entire community doesn't mean just the Somali communities, it means the entire African American community. And by extension, at one level or another, the authorities, and let me be blunt with this, white people feel that they have to relook at every person of color, because if one person did something that was wrong, we have to make sure that nobody else is able to defraud the system. And so we clamp down on everything. All the while, white people steal the country blind, steal the state blind, and do it with impunity. Now, that's a big statement, Al McFarland. I make the statement, and if it deserves to be challenged, please challenge it. But I think that the rush to clamp down and to use the broad paintbrush for all Somalis, for all Black people, for all African, for all immigrants, for all people of color, is reflection of a pattern and practice that continues to keep our people at the margin and to prevent our emergence as owners of solutions that can lead to quality of life that is improved for our own families, for our neighbors, and for our community, for our city. That's what I think, and I'd love to hear what you think about it as well. If you agree or disagree, read Inside News. These stories are in this week's edition of Inside News. It's on newsstands everywhere in Twin Cities right now. You're welcome to write a letter to the editor. We invite you to come on this show and to share your point of view. And we would like your suggestions, your thoughts on who else should be in this conversation. We, again, reached out to a number of our Somali friends, and we expect that they'll be responding for future shows. We think that their voice is important, that the issue is timely and important as well. There was one other story that I had wanted to pull up. Let me see if I can find it while we're waiting here. I might not be able to locate it, but I made reference to it a little bit, and that was from, I think, a post on Substack where a writer was talking about reaction to the podcaster, former news leader, what is her name? Joy Reid. And let me see if I can find that, because it was interesting. Joy Reid. And the article, here it is. I'm pulling it up on my screen. I'll just sort of share it and read it to you. It's by a podcaster, Dr. Stacey Patton. I became aware of her a couple of days ago. I'm just now getting into her work. And the headline for this podcast says, "But did she lie, though? Why Joy Reid is right that America's founders were leeches and murderers." And there's a quote at the beginning of this that says, and it's a quote of Joy Reid. It says, "This nation was founded by killers who slaughtered 90% of the indigenous people they felt entitled to own other people, and they didn't even want to pay taxes on it." That quote attributed to Joy Reid. And so I'll read about 2 paragraphs of this. This appears in Substack. The author, check her out, subscribe and support Dr. Stacey Patton. This was December 9th till today. So she says, and I'll just read about a minute because we've got about a minute left. Here they go again. Right-wing media operatives, cross-culture war bloggers, and professional patriots digging through old-ass footage, old transcripts, and old archives, desperate to pull up a clip that they can wave around as evidence and hates America. The tired formula never changes. They exhume a comment or video clip, strip it of content, and frame truth-telling as yet another step towards tyranny. This time, the target is former MSNBC host Joy Reid, whose so-called defense was stating plainly what generations of historians have already documented, that the United States was founded by white men who mass murdered indigenous people, enslaved Africans, and rebelled in order to avoid paying taxes. Well, that's all the time I got today. I'm Al McFarland. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.